The data tells us, obviously, that female founders get less capital. Mixed teams get slightly more, but female founders still sit around 3% of the global capital that's deployed every year.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors, and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes. Today's guest is Emma, a 4-time founder and now champions underrepresented founders navigating fundraising. Let's rock and roll. Hi, Emma. Welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, Megan. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Okay, I would love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Let's go for it.
Awesome. Okay, question number 1. Which one is harder, raising your first million or your last million?
The first, for sure.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, question number 2. If you could kind of restart everything again tomorrow, what would you kind of do differently?
Nothing.
Yeah, no regrets. I like it. Yeah. Okay, question number 3. What's the most expensive mistake that you now help other founders to avoid?
Hiring the wrong people.
Yeah, totally. Okay, next question. Are you an ice cream or a cake person?
Both.
Both, yeah, 100%. Okay, next question. What's one belief about startups that you've changed your mind on?
I think it's really startups seeing a milestone as raising money as opposed to going out and getting more traction on their own. And I come across that a lot where founders think that that's the goal, and actually the goal is getting your first customer.
Right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, next question. What's a kind of founder skill that you've only really learnt by failing?
Ooh, that is part of the process. That failing is part of the process and part of getting you to where you should be.
Yeah, and that's a really hard part of being a founder to accept, I feel like, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, question number 7. What is your favorite color?
Pink.
Pink. Okay, very on brand at the moment. I like it. Okay, next question. What part of company building are you kind of really excited about training other founders for?
I think definitely AI enablement and AI first.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, next question. What is the best way to jump into the entrepreneurial world if you've never kind of done it before?
Just start. Just start by doing anything.
Okay, I like it. Okay, then last question for the lightning round is, if you had to kind of describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 emojis, what would they be and why?
The rocket ship.
Okay.
Happy face and crying face.
Okay. Okay, so I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but do you want to give us an overview?
The journey feels like it's definitely been a bit of a rocket ship. It's moving so fast and keeping up with that. Happy face to celebrate the wins and sad face to be like, okay, that didn't go so well.
Right. Okay. I feel like that's a great encapsulation of being a founder. Definitely. Okay, that was really awesome. Thank you for answering my lightning round questions. And let's now move into your journey, right? So you basically said that your path into the tech or the entrepreneurial world wasn't particularly linear, let's say, right? So can you kind of talk us through that transition and the kind of skills that you carried across? And what was the kind of advantages as well?
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't linear. So I started my career at the age of 15 as a hairdresser, and I spent 5 years working as a hairdresser. And then I built a platform to bring hair, nail, and makeup people to your home, your office, your hotel. And that I guess that happened because I wish that existed as a hairdresser to pick up those clients. And then I was building a platform largely for me and then for other people as well.
Right.
So I think the transferable skills were actually everything that I was learning, the people skills that I was learning from being on the floor and working with customers around what they wanted, being able to read the room and then just seeing an opportunity and saying, I wish this existed. Okay, I'm going to build it. So I think there's a lot of transferable skills. And maybe because I didn't know what was expected and the journey for building a product, maybe
Yeah.
that naivety around that actually helped me because I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
setting it to any expectations.
Yeah. It's an interesting kind of parallel between being a hairdresser, which I suppose is very much in the kind of customer obsessed area of entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and then you're going to like building multiple different companies. It's really like it's a really interesting transition, but then again, like it's very interconnected if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like you're very much people focused, and then trying to like with the bringing hairdressing and things to people's homes or businesses
Yeah.
or whatever it is. That's very like on the, selling a service kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting like bridge, you could say, like an interesting bridge to connect them both. So it's really, really cool. I really like the parallel.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you said, you've built and you've scaled. I think you're on your, is it third company
Four.
now? Fourth. Wow, yeah, crazy. But while raising a family as well, which is very impressive, honestly. I've met your kids and they are wonderful, but it is presume it's very difficult. So I have a kind of advice question, kind of a like very much like stepping into my shoes question, because obviously I have a parent who has done more or less the same thing. So I want to ask, like, what do you think your children will take away from watching you go on your journey of building these companies?
Yeah, I think they don't have any fear and hesitation around it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them already thinking about, things that they want to do in the future, just because I think from not following a traditional career, they've lived with the ups and downs. Like we have had moments where things haven't been great and we've had to move house. And I think
Mm-hmm.
they've seen that, in the end, everything is kind of works out and it picks back up again. So I think fearless maybe is what they'll take away from that because
Right.
they've watched me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely think so. I feel like that's a big part around being an entrepreneur as well. And I
Mhm.
feel like getting to kind of experience that secondhand is a really valuable experience.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think it's really good that they get to kind of learn through you in a way. I think it's a really good thing. What would you say is like the best part about building companies, but also kind of having your family as well?
I think probably the biggest impact for me
Mm-hmm.
came with my team and managing a team. I think once I was a mother, I actually connected a lot more to sort of empathy. And I
Right.
think that made me more of an empathetic leader.
Yeah.
And with children, you have to have a lot of patience.
Mm.
And, there's no sort of hurrying them up sometimes when they're, in
Mm-hmm.
awe and wonder at the world. And I think it's definitely helped me see things differently. And I think I've taken some of those skills into managing people. But yeah, it's been challenging at times. And having a
Mm-hmm.
support group around me to support the family has also been really key to being able to
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like those like what would you say, like motherly skills, I feel like that really works well in
Mhm.
building and leading
Yeah.
a company, because it's really interconnected, because it is all about the people, and you're driving the people. It's not necessarily, I mean, the product of course is important, but the people are the product basically. So it's more about kind of pushing them up so they can do a better job, which I feel like is definitely a very like motherly
Mm,
skill set. I think it really works really well. Okay, I have a next question, which normally I don't really talk about too much because it's a little bit kind of a bit obvious. But you obviously are a female founder who has raised venture capital, right? So I want to kind of see, where do you most clearly feel the gap between men and women are perceived in the kind of fundraising process?
yeah, I mean, the data tells us obviously that female founders get less capital.
Hmm.
Mixed teams get slightly more, but female founders still sit around 3%
Yeah.
of the global capital that's deployed every year. I think largely a lot of the bias happens is subconscious. So
Yeah.
when VCs are looking to write checks, a lot of the time they're pattern matching. So they're pattern matching against sort of previous founders who, were men who went to sort of Ivy
Mhm.
League universities. I don't think there's a lot of conscious discrimination. I think there's a lot of subconscious pattern matching when it comes to female
Mm.
founders raising capital. But there's a lot of programs these days to support female founders. And now there's a lot of government initiatives. Like in the
Mhm.
UK at the moment, they've got a huge initiative to invest in women task force. So I feel like we are now gaining a little bit more momentum, particularly
Mhm.
that the governments are putting money on the table for
Yep.
female founders to get access to. And I think we are going to start to see, I hope, a change in
Mhm.
that, and that more
Mhm.
female founders are going to get funds.
Definitely. I mean, what would you say in your like personal experience? How would you say like learning to kind of work through that bias?
Yeah, I think, firstly, recognizing that it is often a subconscious bias, that someone is not
Mm.
deliberately being punitive to me, that I just don't match the patterns that they're looking for.
Right.
And I think, I mean, when I coach female founders, I say to them, you potentially will have to have more meetings or make sure you're validating investors
Mhm.
that have invested in female founders. So you've got enough data points to know that that conversation's worth happening. But I think just understanding that, how many conversations it does take to raise capital, and making sure that you're going out to raise capital when your business has a traction already, and and
Mhm.
and putting yourself in the right position then to go and access the capital, I think does make it slightly easier, as opposed to going out too early with no traction. It's harder for anyone, no matter man or woman,
Yeah.
when you're trying to pitch something that's just an idea with no traction, because
Mhm.
you actually have no evidence that the market wants to buy your product.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And obviously it is harder and the subconscious bias is there. So it is very much like pushing past that and
Hmm.
really like showcasing the idea and the people behind it. And I feel like that can really like push through no matter like who you are. It doesn't really matter that much as long as you have like a great idea and a way to actually fulfill that
Hmm.
promise, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's tough, but I feel like being an entrepreneur is tough either way. So it's just another thing like on top of that. So yeah. But I think I mean, honestly, I really look up to you. I think you're a real role model for me anyways, because of all that you've accomplished. And I think it's really awe-inspiring. So I wanted to kind of get your opinion on looking at the tech world as a whole, right? So that's kind of venture capital, entrepreneurship, starting companies, that kind of thing. What would you say are some kind of structural changes that would help other people, just generally everyone who wants to become an entrepreneur, that necessarily doesn't really believe that they're in the right industry to enter tech?
Yeah. Firstly, I think, removing any limiting beliefs is really
Mm.
important. You can do
Yeah.
anything, everyone can do anything if they put their mind to it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for wanting to get into entrepreneurship, and I see a lot of founders do this, where they
Mhm.
have an idea, or they'll just jump into it immediately, leave their job or leave that regular sort of income coming in to go all in.
Right.
And actually, for me, although I have done that in the past, it can be more high risk, because all of a
Mm.
sudden you're putting financial pressure on yourself to make sure that you're building a business that can also sustain you and your bills, or everything
Yeah.
around that. So one of the biggest things that I think help people getting into entrepreneurship is validation of an idea. So
Right.
if you can validate it on the side while either you're still at school in your case, or
Mhm.
whether you're working, and actually try and get proof points and validation to help you understand that actually this is right. I'm now getting signs from the market, whether it's a
Mhm.
wait list sign up or talking to customers and finding out whether they would buy this. And I think having a bit more of a structured approach can be a great way to get into entrepreneurship without going
Mhm.
high risk.
Right.
So the balance of the two, I think, create a mindset as well, where you're like, okay, I'm going to go and get these 3 or 4 key points, whatever it is that you need
Mhm.
to be true for you to then go all in on the business.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Because I mean, it is hard, I feel like, to just jump straight into the kind of, as you would say, unknown
Yeah.
and just jump straight in. And it's very much like a lot of pressure is then put upon you to just make something, which I feel like is very hard to kind of do. From your experience, would you say that this kind of method of just like slowly kind of like implementing into the customer force or whatever it is,
Yeah.
do you think that that's really like empowered your companies in like the long run? What would you say?
Yes, I think it has. I think if you can reduce some of your stresses around,
Mm-hmm.
going all in, it helps you start to build the business in a really clear and succinct way.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was to start another business, I'd be making sure that, I'm testing the market, I'm validating my ideal customer profile, and I'm speaking to the customer, and I'm taking all of that data before then I go
Mm-hmm.
and commit full time to, throwing everything into building a startup. I mean, the percentage of startups that fail are high. So
Yeah.
what can you do to make sure that it's going to be more successful? And that's doing a lot of testing early on,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's questionnaires, speaking to customers, getting a wait
Yep.
list, like
Yep.
whatever
Yep.
you can do to validate both your customer and your product. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really that's the game changer for people
Yeah.
to be more successful, because you're also going in with confidence, going, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
validated this idea. I know people want to buy this. I've got my first customers. Right. I'm all in.
Yeah, 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 definitely. And you're definitely minimizing that risk as
Yes.
well, which I feel like is very important. Yeah, because as you say, most startups do fail. Helping to minimize that risk is always the
Yeah.
ultimate thing you can do. You always want to try and like make sure that that percentage is higher. I
Yeah.
feel like that's definitely a good thing to think about. Okay, let's dig into your frameworks. So one of your frameworks was staying on top of everything that's happening. I feel like that's a very generalized statement. So let's maybe narrow that down a little bit. What were you talking about there?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think, as I mentioned, the lean startup is pretty good as a framework. I think just making sure that you're staying on top of like your competition, like where is the
Mm-hmm.
market moving? Is there any regulation change that's going to happen that might obviously give you, a tailwind as well to speed up the business and selling your product? I think in terms of, frameworks, I mean, when you're starting a business, there's so much to do at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
if you're a solo founder. So staying on top of organization and hiring and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
documentation, and, are there any other AI tools out there that can help you sort of automate some of your role that you're doing,
Yep.
really can sort of take you to the next level quicker.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I feel like it's such a simple thing to think about, but it is like seriously so important. I've had this with obviously my podcast is it's a lot of work because obviously it's me doing everything by myself.
Yeah.
And if you're a solo founder, it's you doing everything by yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work, and staying organized and staying kind of motivated as well is a huge part. Because you are at that point, especially early, you are the only thing that's like keeping that company or whatever it is going. That's why people get really hooked in on entrepreneurship and they just keep doing more and more and more companies. I think it's great. Okay, and then we're entering the part of the podcast which I like to call the zigzag zone. So
Okay.
I want to know where you're zagging and everyone else is zigging. Now, we talked a little bit about this, but I want to talk a little bit more in depth about how you said that anyone can be in tech. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is a very, very empowering statement. But how, give me a kind of example. Like, convince me, otherwise, convince me or convince them.
Yeah. I think when it comes to working in tech, I mean, that is quite
Hmm.
a broad brush
Yeah,
statement.
definitely.
There's lots of areas. Let's take, a tech business, for example. Like there's still, even though you might be working within tech, there's still the commercial aspect of the business as
Mm,
well. There's still marketing, there's
yep,
finances outside of kind of the product manager, the UX, UI, and
yep.
developers. And so you've got product side of the business in tech, and then the commercial side of the business. So you might find that actually you work in finance, but the next company you want to work for is a tech company. that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean you have to have any additional skills to work in the tech industry. Everything is also learnable as well.
Yeah.
I think unless you're in a specific role like engineering or product design or product UX, like maybe you have to start at the bottom to get a role in that. But I really do think if as an industry working in or a different industry like financial services, there's lots of different entry points. And I think there's lots of transferable skills to work in the tech industry, so to speak. So I don't think that there's a lot of blockers.
Yeah, because you can work in startups, you can work in big corporate companies.
Exactly.
There is pretty much from the smallest team ever of 2 people to hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people, if they don't necessarily know the tech ecosystem, then it's very much like I have to work in a really small team and I have to do everything. And that's not necessarily true. Like there are so many different options and so many different kind of paths that you can go down because it's such a broad saying in a way. You know, I wanted to kind of get your advice to other people who don't really feel like they are the right type of person. They don't feel like they're entrepreneurial enough, or they don't feel like they have the right startup mindset, or in that kind of sense. What would you say to them to kind of encourage them that tech is for everyone in a way? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're spot on there, Meg. Like tech is for everybody. You don't have to,
Yep.
and maybe that's more of a mindset shift. So for any of your listeners that are thinking, or maybe, they're graduating and thinking about their first roles, just putting yourself out there, or even what you're doing with doing a podcast of interviewing people that are in or women that are in tech, like also is putting you above other people. So if you're applying now for roles within tech companies, actually the fact that you showed initiative to go and do the podcast, that's super entrepreneurial. You're like, I have this idea of something I want to do. And in my opinion, the entrepreneurial spirit is just going from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And then going from 1 to 2, like actually just doing it as opposed to just having an idea and never executing on it. And I think the startup mindset is all about execution and just doing something. And it is a zigzag, right? Because you might go this way and be like, that's wrong. I'm now going to go down this path. Or you might pivot your product.
Exactly.
You might pivot your audience. So yeah, I think it's definitely for everyone. And if you are trying to get into a tech role, do something outside of the box, like what you're doing. And it doesn't even have to be a podcast. Maybe you just take interesting information and you write about it on a Substack or a Medium or something like that, just to show your interest in the industry can sometimes be enough for an employer, particularly if you're entering the job market as one of your first roles.
Yeah, definitely. Because for me, I have learned so much from all of the interviews that I've done with all of the amazing people like you. So it's it's a really good driver for me, anyways, to really explore my understanding of the entrepreneurial space. It's really helped with that. So I think I agree with you. It's anyone can be in tech. You just have to have the right mindset shift in a way. But yeah, we could talk about this for a while. So let's move on a little bit and let's talk about your story time. Right. So I want to know what happened with you being in a boxing ring, and you had a lot of good stories. So I chose this one because I really wanted to know about this. So a boxing ring for a charity. Now, tell me about that. I feel like that is a very random story.
It is quite random. I think I've always been of a bit of a person where I'm like, yes, and rather than no.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things I think when I was, struggling, building a business and things maybe weren't going as well as expected and meeting my expectations on growth, one of the things that I found really helpful for me was feeling strong physically also helped me feel strong mentally.
Okay.
And the two were so interlinked for me. And someone had said, hey, there's this charity boxing match coming up. You can pick charity. What do you think? And I was like, yes, definitely, let's do it. And it was a 6-week training program. And then you basically, last night you come in and they match you and you have a fight. It was definitely probably the most overwhelming, hardest physical thing I've ever done. The training was difficult, but also getting in the ring and then being like, oh, I don't want to hit this person anymore. But obviously it was all for a really good cause. And I loved it that much that then someone challenged me a couple of years later saying, oh, I bet you wouldn't do that again. And I was like, maybe I would. And then I signed up for the next one. And I also did it as a bit of a way to stand out, because when I was raising capital the second time round, I really wanted to have something that could, in my mind, say, hey, look, I'm pretty fearless and pretty brave, and this is a scary thing to do, and I'm going to do it anyway. So what me doing this as a choice should help define who I am as a leader.
Right.
I'm courageous. I'm just going to get in there and do it. And I'm not going to let my fear hold me back. So I found that narrative also helped me mentally, because I was doing something that I was really afraid of, but I was doing it anyway. Actually really translated into how I was showing up for the business and how I was showing up for my investor meetings.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's a really good idea in terms of a kind of like, this is what I could do, even though it's like absolutely crazy. But like, it's very much like, I'm here, I'm ready,
Done.
I got this. I don't know, but that's so fun. That's also so random, but like so fun at the same time. But yeah, thank you for sharing your story with me. It was really, honestly, really, really fun story. But we're sadly coming to the end of the podcast, but I do have 3 final questions for you. So the first one is, imagine it's 2036. What does your kind of life look like? Where do you think you are?
Oh, hopefully I'm approaching retirement.
Okay.
No, not really. I say that, but I would probably have to have something to keep me engaged.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm passionate about doing lots of different things outside work as well. But I think in 10 years from now, hopefully I'm still doing something I'm passionate about. I think my average day would probably look quite different to now. Maybe I am only working, I'm not building businesses from the beginning again. And maybe it's sharing more of my lessons, mentoring more. I get a lot of joy out of mentoring younger entrepreneurs that come through. And spending more time with my children.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's really good. I think some really good things to wish for. And then maybe a boxing ring match.
Yeah.
To mix it up a little bit.
I don't know.
Okay, and then next question. How can like listeners follow along to your journey?
Yeah, best place to find me is LinkedIn. And I have just started writing a Substack, so I'll share that with you and you can share it in the show notes.
Very nice.
But yeah, LinkedIn, I like to sort of write a lot about my sort of journeys and lessons along the way. I share a lot of, frameworks around raising capital with female founders and sort of sharing that it is possible, and mindset shifts and sort of reframing that. So probably the best place to find me is LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay, and then last question. How can listeners kind of be useful to you? So what can they do to help you?
Oh, that's a good question. Engage in my LinkedIn content. Like if there's something that I'm talking about that resonates with you, feel free to comment. It's always great to start a dialogue around, differences of opinions, or maybe if the listeners are trying to start their own businesses, we can have a conversation on LinkedIn.
Definitely. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm really looking forward to following along with your journey, but thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Meg.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favorite podcasting app. Do consider leaving us a review, as it helps the podcast tremendously.